Oxfam says the $2.5 trillion increase in billionaire wealth registered in 2025 would be enough to eradicate extreme global poverty 26 times over. And yet the world is plagued with 25% of the population being deemed food insecure, while Oxfam also says nearly 50% live in poverty. And despite major concerns about global economic growth last year, due to protectionist policies, the super rich actually got richer.
In the midst of the crisis of the past year, we saw a significant shift of the wealth of this world to a tiny, tiny fraction of the world's population, essentially the billionaires or the super rich.
While concerned about the level of extreme wealth on the rise among the world's few, Oxfam has also raised its concerns about the super wealthy increasingly moving en masse into politics, influencing major policy that affects broader society.
There's a confluence of politics and economics, and this has resulted in a situation where there is a capture of the political institutions we have and the systems we have. And so in many countries, and it's not just simply in the developing world, in the developed northern countries, you've seen the rise of the wealthiest in government. I mean, a classic example is the US government, where you essentially is a government of oligarchs. And you would also see this in our various countries, where the average person is unable to climb up to occupy a political office.
Even if they're not in politics, the super rich are able to use their financial clout in lobbying those who are in power. And Oxfam says this undermines democratic processes, pushing policy in favor of the wealthiest interests as opposed to the interests of the ordinary man or woman in the street. Meanwhile, Oxfam's Inequality report found that poverty on the African continent remained a major issue.
As we speak at the moment, close to half of the continent's population, about 750, are living with different forms of food insecurity. In the world as we speak today, I said it's a global problem, but it has a particularly face because of the huge numbers of our people that are living with extreme levels of inequality, but then also poverty.
When it comes specifically to South Africa, despite a number of policies introduced to deal with the redistribution of wealth since the dawn of democracy, the country still faces major challenges on the inequality front, with a handful of economic players still wielding significant economic power.
80% of South Africa's population living around the poverty line, and you have just about seven. I mean, South Africa's richest, super rich people, they constitute about, they're about 7 out of the 22 we have billionaires we have in Africa, and they control 10% of the wealth of the country. I mean, we've seen a significant leap in the wealth of just these 7 South African super rich or billionaires. So essentially the point is that it is no mistake that we have poverty on the rise. It is deliberate, it is strategic, and it's actually a capture of the instruments of power, of governance, and then also of economics by the super rich.
Oxfam warns that greater global inequality is not only unpleasant for the have-nots, but it creates a sense of resentment among populations and tangible anger, which can and has resulted in major instability, creating a very unsavory environment for everyone, rich, poor, and those somewhere in the middle.
Economic inequality, people suffer hunger. But when there is governance inequality, people get angry. And we've seen a significant jump in protests around the world, close to 170 last year in 68 countries, many of them on our continent.
Calling on governments to more effectively tax the ultra-wealthy. It's also calling for a more prominent division to be made between wealth and politics, with better measures to limit lobbying, particularly by the wealthy. It's calling for the improved political empowerment of ordinary citizens and governments doing a better job in their redistribution of wealth to better address inequality. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.